to jump right in. Like, love it.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's talk about Mortal Kombat 1, which I'm already upset about because it's 1. They're resetting the numbers because after you hit 13 or whatever, it gets really
11.
It's a little bit 11. Doesn't matter. Apparently that's too big a number. You got to reset it to 1. Gamers don't know how to count. Everybody knows that. When you get to a certain number or a certain count, you have to reset it. It's all part of the game developer rulebook. You got to look it up.
Well, to me, my guess is their philosophy is like, this is gonna be the Mortal Kombat for at least for a while. It's like the one Mortal Kombat, right? That they're gonna keep updating and adding characters to, and blah blah blah. So
the 6-year Mortal Kombat release until they decide to make Mortal Kombat 2. I mean, I don't know how long the fighting games typically go up now. It's actually a while.
They're a while. They usually do like multiple like season passes and like all this. They can do like years worth of content, like new characters, like new stages, whatever. So
I'm
cosmetics also obviously.
I feel like with Street Fighter and with Mortal Kombat, it's been more than like 3 years each time. They've left them up for like 3 to 4 years before shipping out the next game. Because Street Fighter 5 compared to 6, it was not like a 2-year cycle.
In like the mid 2010s or something like that.
Exactly.
Like,
they leave that up for a while and they just update it, and then eventually they decide.
I don't know. People didn't really like Street Fighter 5, but
yet it lasted a long time apparently.
July 23rd, 2015. So like 8 years.
It was 8 years. They left that thing up 8 years, and Mortal Kombat I don't think was 8 years from 11 to this one, but it feels like it's 4 to me. I don't know why, but it feels like 4 is the number. So
Mortal Kombat 11, man, you're on the dot. April 23rd, 2019.
Yeah.
So 4.5 years for Mortal Kombat 11.
Yeah. It feels like with fighting games in particular, especially these big ones, they're like, we have to leave it up for more than 2 years because we want to sustain the game, and we can give like a bunch of new character updates and things like that to keep it going for a long time. Which I actually like that to some extent, like with fighting games. I don't know how much of the formula really changes from fighting game to fighting game, because I'm not a fighting game person, but
I mean, with each individual fighting game, the base mechanics of like how it works stay the same, but they'll change the way like meter, like the way like the meter works.
Yeah.
Like MK11, for example, had like an offense and a defense meter. And then in this new one, there's just like 1 meter, but then there's also like they added assist. You can't tag, but there's like an assist. You get an assist character. They added like an assist mechanic, but again, it's not a tag team fighter. You can't actually tag and play as the other character, but
you have a character to help you.
And then you just have like one meter for your meter spend. So,
which does change things up, but at the same time, I'm like, the formula of just you're doing your 1v1. They're not changing the perspective a lot.
No, it's all like,
it's still a
2D fight.
Mechanics. It just comes down to mechanics change. We finally got 2K24 reviews. A 69. Good stuff. Good job, NBA 2K. You fucking
trash. What you expect?
Fucking trash game. Yeah, people are addicted to it. Okay, 86 is great. Again, just proving that this might be the best year of games ever, maybe. Maybe
in terms of reviews, it sure seems like
it. Seems like it. Yeah.
Every big release that comes out gets like an 85 minimum, if not like high 80s to low 90s.
There's a lot of momentum happening here. 86 Starfield landed on an 86 eventually. It seems like there.
Okay.
It
started out a little higher than that.
It started out higher than that.
89,
it was 88. Yeah. It was 88 when we checked it. So going down 2 points. I haven't touched that game, by the way, and I'm okay not touching it, actually.
I agree with Ghost. I feel like the high scores are coming out a little too much.
They're giving the high scores out pretty frequent this year.
We talked about it with when we talked about Starfield, but I feel like also where like some of these like smaller sites, they either go one way or the other. They either like for clickbait, they either give it a really low review or they just give it like a 9 or give everything like a 9 or 10. It's like
you're a review site. You got to make money. And if you're going to give out a controversial opinion, it is what it is, but that's going to get your short-term clicks. That being said, I don't think that strategy generally works in the long term. I don't subscribe to the like any news is like bad news is still like news kind of idea of like, well, you're still getting your clicks. Like, yeah, but you also build a reputation. So to that point, to that end, if the site's going like extremes, that also means your reputation is diluted. It's like, okay, well, either going to give like a godly review or a shitty review. There has to be, you have to have an in between to give yourself actual credibility. Like, you can't just give 5s and 10s. 5 out of 10, 10 out of 10.
I don't know. I just don't. It just feels like, and again, we talked about this last time with Starfield, but I just don't like some of these sites. They just give out like 10s like candy. It's just like you get a 10, and you get a 10, and you get a 10, and you get a 9, and you get a 9, and you get a 10, and you get a 9, and it's like, can we be a little more like discerning? Like, I get it. Most games that, like, I get the argument that like a lot of companies, especially like the big AAA companies, they don't really release bad games. So I see why that, like, you know, a lot of times the lowest you see is like a 7 basically, and that's like 7 to 10, and this scale is just like super compressed. Right. So like I see the argument for why it is that way, because again, companies generally don't really release bad games.
They're not trying to, obviously.
Even mediocre games, like most games that come out, especially the AAA products, are at least like quite solid from a production value standpoint and that stuff. So it's hard to give them kind of a bad review.
Right.
But I don't know. I would like the scale to expand, or either that or just like compress the scale. Just go to a 1 to 5 scale where it's like 5 is like must buy, 4 is like really solid, really good, 3 is decent, like, you know, and then 2 and 1 are like, okay,
just
look
avoid
out,
it.
Right?
Those are just avoid it.
It's like the 10-point scale for the most part feels kind of pointless to me most of the time, because basically anything under a 6 you hardly ever see unless the game is complete dog shit. Like, if I feel like a lot of these sites just go to a 5-point scale, to be honest, because that's kind of,
honestly, if your game is under 7, I don't think it's good at this point. That's kind of where I'm at now, because I look at a lot of games that come out, and I could make an argument for a lot of these, actually, like even the ones that I don't know a lot about. Like, okay, 77. Like, I could still see somebody being a fan of the genre or the fan of the series. Like, a 77 is an appealing number. But then I jump to like NBA 2K24. The only person that should buy this video game, outside of all my other opinions on this series, is like, you got to be a big basketball sim fan. Like, you're not, if you are not a basketball sim fan, you're not going to like this game, is what I see. Like, anything under a 7 now, I just don't think is a good game anymore. And that's like kind of partly because of how reviewers have skewed this system. Normally, I would have said a 6 is actually okay. Like, probably like 10 years ago. I would have been like, yeah, 6 is probably fine. If you're a fan of the genre and series, 6 maybe is okay.
Yeah, if you're a fan of the genre or series, you'll probably
now
enjoy it. There's something to like there with a 6. But like most even games that are like that are bad, like they'll meta in the 60s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Anthem, for example, I think meta in the 60s.
Right.
That game's garbage. Like that game's trash.
It's not a good game. Yeah, it's just not.
Like, what was Redfall was either the low 70s,
it was like,
or the low 60s or the high 50s. I don't remember.
Redfall was 50s, I'm pretty sure. Let's look. Let's just, is this gonna work? Or is this a user search? No, Redfall had to have been 50s. Yeah, Redfall was 50s.
57 is pretty horrible. What about Gollum?
Gollum, I feel like, was 60s. I feel like this was 60s. Oh, 37.
37. Oh wow, that really dropped. Because I feel like when we looked at it before, it was like in the 50s. Okay, so actually, those metas are actually, well,
that's bad. Oh, that's horrible.
I think Gollum deserves to be there. Like, that game is like a 3 or a 2, probably. Like, that game's like horrible.
Yeah, and those are really bad ones. I still think if your game is trending in the 6 range, and I'm just saying 6, like if it's anywhere from 60 to 69, I don't consider it a good game anymore. I would have said it was okay 10 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, it's probably okay. Probably okay. Maybe if you're like a big fan of the genre, like if it's, let's just example, if I saw like 10 years ago a 65 JRPG that was like a series I was really fond of, like, okay, I'd still give it a shot. Maybe not full price, but when it gets on sale, sure. Now when I see NBA 2K24 to 69, I like basketball sims. I would never touch this game unless this game had like an 80, something like that. At this point, I would never touch it. And if like there was another game that was like a I don't know, I guess like a shooter or something like that, and it was a 67, I wouldn't buy it. Like I wouldn't even give it a second thought of not going for it. I'd just be like, nope, no thank you. I like shooters, but not like that. And that's just kind of the line of thinking I'm at now. So I think partly that's just because reviewers have been giving things, I feel like, an extra little bump recently. I don't recall ever seeing this many 96s and, you know, like this range of 90s before, like 95. I rarely saw that previously. If anything got a 90, I feel like it would have been like, oh my god, hold the presses, something got a 90.
Well, and like they, like, again, with like when I was talking about they giving out 10s like candy, it's like I know there's like way more review sites out there now than there used to be, and part of it is like press from the companies, right? They just give out codes to content creators and all these review sites so they can basically get clout and like get them to get the streamers and all the review sites to basically advertise for them. It's a good strategy on their part, but it's a little, I don't know. I forget where I was going with this, but yeah, they just like, again, some of these sites, they just like, I feel like you used to see a 10, like 110, like every couple of years you would see a game get a 10.
Yeah.
Like,
and
now it's like every year there's multiple games that are getting 10s from many sites, and it's like, I just feel like sites need to be way more discerning, especially with 10s. Like,
right. I mean, Mortal Kombat
so
didn't get a
as an
10.
example, by the way, I'm looking at this game. We talked about it. This game came out last year. We talked about it. I played it. It's called Star Ocean: The Divine Force, Star Ocean 6. And I told you I thought it was like, you know, it's fine. It's okay. It's a
71.
It's a decent game. It's got a meta 71. But
Yeah.
is like, is that a game that like, that meta's a little low, I wouldn't touch that, right? Is that, I know it's not under 70.
So for me, if I saw this, again, I'm not a hardcore JRPG person. So let me retranslate this game into something else for this argument. I'm gonna say it's like a open world Western RPG now, and it's a 71. I'd avoid it. Even if I was a fan of the series, I'd be like, nope, no thank you. I'll just move on. Because the thing is, first off, I have a problem finishing games anyway. But the second thing is, I can find any other game right now that's either like cheaper or like something else that I'm more interested in. I can just play that and feel like, okay, like I get it. I'm a fan of this series and I like JRPGs or maybe open world games. But to me, a 71 is like, I'm not going to give it a second thought. I'm just going to move on. Like, okay, let me give another example,
like
actually. Let me give one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you keep going. I got to find
I was just going to say, like, this isn't a bad game. Like, it's fine. It's not amazing. But, like, for me, I would probably give this game a 6. Like, but that's me being like, yeah, it's a decent game. It's nothing special in my opinion. Like,
yep.
So I would give it a 6. I think it's above average, which is what a 6 is to me. 5 is average, 6 is above average, 7 is good, 8 is great, 9 is amazing, 10 is, you know, absolute freaking masterpiece. This game to me is a 6. Like, it's above average. I don't think it does anything exceptionally well. I don't think it does anything exceptionally poorly either. It's just kind of fine. It's a little bit above average, so I say it's a 6.
Yep.
So yeah.
Here's my example. I played this game. I played the whole thing, and it's got a 68. But I played this. I didn't buy this at full price, just to be clear. I bought it like heavily discounted. I think it was like 20 to 30 bucks when I bought it.
20 or 30, yeah. So
and the only reason I bought it, I will tell you right now, the only reason I bought it is because I like these set of Gotham characters.
Yeah.
I like Batman.
And you liked the old Gotham, Gotham games.
I like Gotham games. I like the Arkham games. I like these characters. I actually like pretty much subscribe to like Red Hood, Batgirl, Robin, like Nightwing. I'm cool with all of them, even though like some of them I'm probably less okay with. I still prefer this as just another Batman game, to be clear, but it wasn't. So I like this universe. It's got a 68. I played it. That's a little bit off from what I said before, which is if it's under a 70, I'm not going to give it a second thought. This is a rare case where I definitely wanted to play it when it was discounted, even with the scores like this, because I'm like
fan of
super excited about the series and the characters. And I don't actually think this game was a 68. I probably would have given it like a 70. So just like 2 points higher, I think would have been more appropriate.
Really, you'd give this game a 7?
I would have given it a 7.
Interesting.
I would have given it a 7.
Because everything I've seen in this game, that game looks like a 5 or a 6 to me, and I haven't played it.
I would have given it a 7. It's got problems, but I found it was still entertaining. I didn't like everything about it, obviously, but I feel like a 7 would have been more appropriate for me, but that's just me. Again, if somebody gave this a 6, I'd be like, yeah, sure. 6 would have made sense too. But I would have given this 2 more points. I feel like this game was better than a 68. I think a 70 would have been right where I would have put it. I would have put a 7. But still, that's my example. Like Star Ocean, it's got a 70. You enjoyed your time with it. It means it's a solid game. Cool, I'm in. Yeah. I thought for me, Gotham Knights was solid. It wasn't great. I don't think it's a good game. I'm not saying that. I just think it's solid for what it does. Particularly when you know what you're getting into. I was not getting into a good story. I knew that. The Gotham Knights doesn't have a great story. I already knew that. But I was entertained by the combat a little bit. Like I was entertained by some of the like movement within the world. I was entertained by some of the nostalgia. So a 7's good for me. 6, if somebody gave it a 6, I would have been okay with it though. I would have understood. 6 is totally appropriate.
I guess like my point is like, I don't know. I kind of just want to. Again, I wish they kind of used the scale more. Like gave out more 5s and 6s for games that are like just kind of meh.
Yeah.
Instead of just like, if a game is meh, it usually gets a 7. Like VM's kind of like, it's okay. It gets a 7 when that should be a 5 or a 6.
Yep. Agreed.
So I wish they expanded the scale a little bit, or again, I wish they just went like, if they're just gonna compress the scale this much, just go to the 5-point scale. 1 is horrible, 2 is like not very good or below average, 3 is okay, 4 is like good to great, and 5 is amazing, and like that's it, right? I don't know. I think I'd rather see that if they're gonna they're just gonna squeeze the scale so much.
I'm with you.
Like,
I think there already is a game on here that I think they overhyped, and that's Diablo 4. Of all the games on this list, this one to me is like...
That game's not an 88.
That got so overhyped, and I know at the time we were really excited about it, and we enjoyed our time with it initially, but kind of after reconsidering everything, this is not a close to a 90.
See, that's the interesting thing about like reviews, because Diablo 4 is like, it's an ARPG. It's a game that they're gonna keep iterating on, and you're supposed to play for a long time. It's not really a good game for a review, because the reviewer is gonna play the story and then maybe like do a little bit of the end game and then stop. Maybe they're gonna play it for like 40 to 60 hours, something like that.
Right.
And like, I think in the first 40 to 60 hours of Diablo 4, I would have given it at least an 8, if not like a 9. I was like addicted to it. I loved the game. But then you get into the end game and there's like not much to do, and it's just a freaking grind, and you're like, well, actually this game
doesn't feel as good anymore.
Has some issues.
Right.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel as good anymore.
Like, the longer you play it.
Yeah.
So I think the game has a solid base.
Yeah.
So I think like for me, D4 would be like a 7. I think like it has a solid base and it's fun to play, but as far as ARPGs go, it gets like very stale pretty quickly in the end game.
I think a 7.5 probably would have been where I landed. Maybe an 8 if I was feeling really nice that day. But just like, I can't give it a 7 because I also think Gotham Knights is a 7, and I know Diablo is better than Gotham Knights. So I'm like, I can't give it the same score just off that knowledge. But Like that's the point I want to get to too with this. Is like reviewers overhyped this game way too much because they played the story. The story was actually solid. I'm not gonna say it was.
I think people overhyped the story. Like 90% of the campaign is actually kind of dog shit.
It's kind of boring until you get closer to the end, and then it's like
I don't know about 90%, but like 70% of like the very beginning is really good.
Yep.
Like the intro, and then the end is good. Most of the middle is
boring.
Like boring as fuck.
It is.
To be
it's
honest.
very boring.
There's not a lot. It's just fetch quest upon fetch quest upon fetch quest.
It's just running around. You're chasing Lilith, and then finally you get there, and you finally get the good stuff. But like, this is a game that reviewers super overhyped because we hadn't had a Diablo in a long time. It wasn't dog shit, and it's like, okay, the story's not dog shit, so we're just gonna give it a better score because it's like it's also kicking like a certain, you know, love of the series nostalgia button.
Yeah.
But this is not this is not. I can't even think of putting this on the same level after playing Sea of Stars for like 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours. Just 3 to 4 hours of that was way better than this. So to me, it's like, it's gross to even think like, wow, this is almost on the same level as this video game that I just know is way better.
Yeah, and again, obviously I'm a JRPG fan and I love this game, but Octopath Traveler 2 has an 85, which is like, you know, it's a very solid
It's a good score still.
But D4 being better reviewed than Octopath 2 is offensive to me.
It just,
again, for me, Octopath 2 is still my game of the year right now. Like, that game's incredible. It's
just so frustrating. I mean, Sea of Stars has a great score already, so I'm not saying that it's a crime, but like, that's what I'm talking about. Is like, okay, there are certain games where reviewers get too excited about it. They're getting too excited. Diablo 4, they got way too excited about it. I know it. And I think, I'm not sure. I haven't finished Baldur's Gate 3, but there's a part of me that thinks maybe they got a little too excited. 96 is really high.
They got too excited about BG3.
I do want to mention something about Baldur's Gate. I think the couple patches that they are putting through, they're definitely helping the game's visuals too, the performance. But it's not
reviewed it on the base version.
I got it.
Act 3 was basically fucking unplayable.
I got it. I'm just saying, like,
I don't get it.
Well, I played it last night. I'm just saying, like, I felt like, oh wow, for whatever reason, the performance feels better.
Yeah, no,
wow, this feels better already.
They've been improving it. They've been improving it for sure.
Just
but
a
again,
side comment.
The reviewers played it before any patches came out. Like,
and it got his goal. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, it's, man, really, some of these scores are like, man, it's really high. You sure you got too excited?
You got like 6 games that are like over 90, and 90 or greater, and then you've got like 4 more that are 89, and then, you know, however many 88. It's like, God, yeah.
There's a lot of high stuff. I feel like reviewers are getting really excited. I know this is supposed to be about Mortal Kombat, but the whole point of this discussion,
I don't have much to say.
I don't have much to say either, but the
Kombat,
whole point,
not really...
I think part of the point too is just like, I feel like reviewers are getting excited. These scores are like, they're exciting. I know as like a gamer, it's exciting to see the big numbers, but at the same time, I would also appreciate not big numbers so I can get a realistic sense of a game,
of how good the game actually is.
Like Diablo 4 88 gives me an unrealistic sense of the game now, because I'm thinking, oh, that's like pretty close to the ideal game. Like, not perfect, like 96 is almost like you're saying it's perfect, but it's like close to being perfect here at almost a 90 to me is like, man, can't think of a ton of flaws. That's what I think when I see 90. 96 is like almost flawless, maybe 1 or 2 issues.
Yeah.
88 is like almost is like, yeah, there's some flaws, but overall the experience is going to be like, you're going to love it. I don't think we got that with Diablo. And that's why I'm like, I'm concerned with these high reviews now.
Yeah. And again, we talked about it, I think, last time, and I said, like, in IGN's review, they're like, Diablo has, like, near perfect endgame. That was, like, in the text of the review, and it's like, that is just wrong. Like, I'm sorry.
Feels like somebody at Blizzard said, I'll give you $50 if you say this exact text line. You're like, well, I do want lunch, so okay. It feels like that. It's like, are you sure it's perfect? Are you sure it's near perfect? Did you play any other game?
Yeah. Reviews, again, the scale just feels like it keeps getting like more and more
Right.
compressed. Basically,
Yeah.
the further we go, it's like
it's getting out of control. It's getting a little bit
out of control.
I'm with you.
I'm with you. D4 for me, I think, is like, I can see basically a reasonable score anywhere from like 6 to 8. Higher than 8, I'm like, nah. And then lower than 6, I'm like, I mean, obviously reviews are opinion. You can maybe think D4 is trash and give it like a 3 or a 4.
Yeah, you could. 100%.
Or you can be a Metacritic reviewer and just give everything a 10 or a 0. So, whatever.
I mean, I ignore Metacritic. You could bet I ignore Metacritic.
User review.
User reviews on Metacritic are pure garbage.
Useless.
You may as well just consider it pure garbage.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, we'll see as this, obviously we look at reviews for games and, fall's coming around, quite a few releases, but, I mean, like Super Mario Wonder and like Mario RPG, those are gonna be like high 80s.
Yeah, Wonder's 90s, gonna get a 90.
Meta,
we know Wonder's gonna get a 90. We know Super Mario RPG is gonna get like a 90. We know that. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, like it's gonna get that. No, if any reviewer giving that under an 8 is gonna get extremely criticized. Yeah. They're gonna be immediately ostracized.
and again, I know we've kind of gone on and on. I've talked about it before, but another game this year that came out that I think just got overhyped and over-reviewed is FF16. Like, that game is...
I have no idea. That's not even here. It's probably like an 85 or something, though. Like an 86.
Yeah, it's probably...
Yeah, there's just some games I don't
misses... It's 88. It's 88 meta.
It is what it is?
Critic. It's like...
Like I said,
that game is like...
We're seeing...
That game has issues, man. Like, it's fun, but...
Yeah, that's where we are now. We're in a big numbers race. Everybody's trying to get the big numbers. Every reviewer is trying to get their credibility and things like that. And nobody wants to be the reviewer that gives Super Mario Wonder a 7. Nobody wants to be that. If you're the reviewer that gives Super Mario Wonder a 7, it's kind of like that reviewer that did the Cuphead tutorial, and it's like, you immediately discredit yourself to the point where you'll never get a job again. And that's also a fear. Is like, if I'm a reviewer, do I really want to be the reviewer that gave FF16 a 7? And said all these things, and everybody else gave it like a 9, and now I look like the huge outlier. There's also I don't think that's true. I hope it's not true, but maybe the reviewers are thinking that too. They're like, well, I'm talking to my reviewer buddies, because they all talk, and I'd hate to be the reviewer that gives Resident Evil 4 that came out in March. I'd hate to be the person that gave that a 7. So why don't you guys give me an idea of what you're giving it, and I'm just going to steer a little bit that direction. I'd hate to think that that's true, but I also know that all these reviewers, like, much with any business, they all talk. They all talk to each other. Every single reviewer is talking to each other. Every single one of these reviewers talks to each other. All the big ones talk to each other. I wouldn't be surprised if they're like all trying to not be the outlier, and that's what causes this kind of thing. Like, if I go to Baldur's Gate and I go to the bottom review, whoever the bottom reviewer is, view charts. Okay, somebody gave this somebody must have given this a lower score. So who gave this the lowest score? Who do you really want to be? These people gave it a 7. Now everybody else is looking at your 7 and be like, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you like it? What's your problem? Do you really want to be the reviewer that gave it a 7? Is where I'm getting at.
I mean, you're gonna get like flamed on the internet, but
you're gonna get flamed on the internet, and you're gonna be that reviewer, and then that to me immediately signals, okay, well, the site also is the name. The reviewer's name is not here. It's the freaking site. Now the site's like, well, you're giving us a bad rep. Like, a 7? You sure?
Well, I mean,
now people don't take us seriously.
I get what you're saying, but like, reviews are failing in their purpose if like that's the mindset. It's like, I can't give my honest opinion about the game because it doesn't it's too homogenous. It doesn't it doesn't coincide with the general consensus. It's like,
Right.
why am I not allowed? Why am I not allowed to disagree with what everybody else thinks? Like, I mean, I've told you this. I think Breath of the Wild is a mediocre game. Like, I don't like it very much. You know,
And-
it's like a 6. It's like a 6 or a 7.
And for the site, if you're the site that gave Breath of the Wild a 7, let's just think about this for a second. Like, you're Cirrus Gaming. Okay, let's just for a second. Just hear me out. Hear me out on this. I hear what you're saying. I'm gonna give a counter, and the counter is gonna be really messed up because now I'm thinking of it from Cirrus Gaming's perspective. I'm Cirrus Gaming. I need people to click on my ads. If my reviews are if I'm giving 7 out of 10s to other games that are really good, everybody's going to think I'm a joke site. Now nobody's going to want to click on my site. Now I can't make money. So,
I mean,
yes, that's messed up. That's very messed up. But that's what reviewers also think too, because their editor, whoever their chief editor is, whatever, they're being told by somebody else, don't be that guy or don't be that gal. Don't be that, because that hurts our site. So that ruins the integrity of reviewing.
Well, if you're gonna be an outlier, you want to if you're gonna be an outlier, be a super outlier so people actually click on it and actually, or I don't know.
They're probably telling that, but then again, like, now your reputation starts to take a hit.
Yeah.
So this is.
I mean,
I don't want to believe that's true, but I do see that, and that's kind of maybe the reason why we're seeing all this.
I mean, you know, I didn't think about it that way, but I think you're probably right, and that means that reviews are basically useless at this point, because
they're not. I don't think they are, and I don't want to think that that's the truth. But like, if I'm an owner of one of these sites, yeah, I'm gonna be like, hey, you can't give Baldur's Gate a 5.
You're right. You're right. You don't want to, like, when the big, like, you know, when the new Zelda game comes around, like Elden Ring, like whatever the newest, like, biggest hype game that came out, like, you don't want to be the site that gives it like a 5 or a 6, because then people are gonna be pissed. And,
I'm gonna put like the biggest fan of the series on it, and I'm gonna say, okay, be nice. Like, we can't be an outlier, because then people are gonna think we're not serious as a site. We're gonna be too far from the norm. People are gonna think we're just being like jokesters. They're not going to take us seriously, and nobody wants to click my ads anymore. So it's just, I don't know. I feel like that only really will apply with like these God tier kind of games. But like, man, wouldn't that be kind of messed up if that was the truth? That would make reviewing really hard to follow in general, which is why I hope it's not true. I hope there is integrity in there, as opposed to click on my ads kind of idea. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't
Mortal Kombat.
Go to a 10-point scale where the score is the 1's digit of your 80s metascore. Yeah, it really should be. I mean, yeah, again, at this point, as I've talked about, with the scale being so condensed and these other issues that we're talking about, I am in favor of the, like, and they won't do this, but I would want sites to just go to a 5-point scale, just, you know,
yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4.
Some do
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's a few that do
a
5-point scale, but again, most people use the 10-point scale, and you hardly see anything under a 7, basically.
Yeah.
Like, if a game is bad, it'll get like a 5 or a 6.
Yeah.
And if a game is Gollum, then it'll get like a 3 or
2 or a
2,
3,
but,
like a
you know,
horrible score. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, I'm just about to say.
Well, no,
like,
you don't do the 0.5. It's
like,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not 1.5.
So,
It's 1, 2, 3, 4,
people
5.
put 0.5 in the scale. I'm like, well, that's kind of just, you may as well just made it a 10 scale.
That's a 10-point scale.
That's a 10-point scale.
Well, yeah, and again, if you're doing like the 10-point scale and you allow like 8.5 or 9.5, that's a 20-point scale. You might as well just do 1 to 20. Like,
right. You may as well just change it up. I don't know. Don't know.
And if you're doing the, you know, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, well, that's a 100-point scale. So
what the fuck is even 0.2 here in the context of this? It's like, yeah, it's just a little bit better than a 9. So 9.1. Like, well, just make it 92 out of 100. Like, what?
Yeah, it's 90. It's 92 out of 100.
It's just 92 out of 100. What's this going on? Anyway. Okay. God, this is such a depressing topic. We should cheer ourselves up.